Hey guys, this is Mr. Blansett. We're going to get started a little bit here today looking at our music unit. And likely with you guys working from home, a lot of you are listening to music a lot, either streaming uh, through your phones, through CDs, vinyl records, maybe even some 8 tracks if you're kind of old school. But what we're going to look at today is how the evolution of our music consumption has changed with technology and how it's kind of changed the sort of social way that we listen to music. So hopefully you guys have a little bit of fun with this. I even have some music videos dropped in here that we're going to blow over today, but I'm going to have you guys take a look at those tomorrow for an in-class assignment. I think you'll enjoy some of those, kind of a walk through my childhood. So the first time people are really able to listen to music is at concerts. And with the invention of the phonograph, it was able to kind of bring these concerts home. People could uh, get their favorite Mozart recordings or John Philip Sousa marches, and they were able to play them just in the comfort of their own home. If you're a fan of a show like Downton Abbey or something like that, they could be watching these in something they would maybe call the drawing room, where they would hang out before or after meals or parties. I do not have a drawing room in my house. I'm sure most of you do not as well. But the phonograph allowed us to really get music out of the big symphony halls and made it a more personal thing. It went from these giant hundreds or thousands of people listening to the same thing to maybe just a few people at a dinner party, or even sometimes even yourself. I know I often like to listen to music myself, just completely alone. This changes in the 20th century with something that comes along, and we have these records, and this makes it even more mobile. It's no longer something that's kind of tucked in a family room, but this, if you think about my parents and probably somewhere along the lines of your grandparents, records allowed us to buy individual songs and allowed us to kind of tuck it away into a part of the house, either in the basement, um, in bedrooms. A lot of teenagers in the 50s would have these in their bedrooms so their parents didn't have to listen to things like Buddy Holly and Elvis wrecking their lives. Um, Oddly enough, this has made a huge comeback lately. The sort of retro uh, albums, records, they're huge right now. CDs aren't selling anymore, but records are really going through the roof. In fact, I've kind of become a bit of a collector myself. I went out and bought a record player a few years ago. I listen to music all the time on there. It's kind of interesting, kind of neat, and I've been able to pull out some of my parents' old records and still listen to those exact same records I had when I was a little nipper back in the late 70s, early 80s. The song I'll have you listen to on here is by the Stray Cats. This is the first album I ever bought. I was at my friend Andy Popovich's, and he had a portable record player, and we could take it from his living room out to his garage and plug it in out there. Um, it was like a little suitcase, like a little briefcase. You flip it open and it had a record player inside. It was pretty sweet. But I bought this at a place called the Exclusive Company in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I ran over there to play it. So I'll let you guys tomorrow take a look at that song and play it a little bit. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a little bit of a look into my childhood. As records uh, take off, what really changes the American landscape is the radio. This really allows entertainment to come into the home, and it's ever changing entertainment. Think of the early radio as like television, where families would gather around to hear certain, uh, I guess, certain radio programs. If you've ever seen the movie A Christmas Story, little Ralphie sits around listening and waiting for little orphan Annie to come on, and obviously she's just selling him Ovaltine. But this really kind of brought the family together. The family would often hang out in the same room, much like we do with television today. And even now, with the advent of streaming television, we are sort of watching it on our own devices. And we'll get into that a little bit further as we move along. But just a different way to kind of take a look at how we consume this. So, radio allows it to change. After the radio becomes quite popular, we move into 8 track tapes. And I had these as a kid growing up. I had almost this exact same thing. In fact, my parents still have it in their basement. It actually still functions. It's from the late 60s, early 70s. Um, my grandma had one, and I was allowed one time to pick out an 8 track tape, and I picked out Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. Still a great album. And ironically, G just died like 2 weeks ago, and I listened to the entire album on record. Um, Kenny Rogers Man, you take a look at that. You all know that song. You all know the words to that song. You just may not know that you do. But 8-track tapes even got into cars, and once they get into cars, it's a whole different thing. Now we can make our music much more mobile than it has been in the past. The 8-track gets kind of shrunken down into what we call a cassette tape, and this is a really interesting thing because now we can carry these around. Um, Not only in our cars, but this also goes into what we call the boom boxes, the big radios that you'd pop up on your shoulder, kind of like this, carry it around like your beatbox. These were called boom boxes. They were super cool when I was a little kid. I wanted one so badly. We had break dancers in my hometown that carried them around, and I couldn't break dance. I still can't. But they always carry these huge things with massive bass, and I really, really wanted one. And they had all these different cassette tapes they'd pop in and out of there. I still actually have some of my cassette tapes. If we were in class, I'd bring some of them in and show you. But some of these are super, super cool. They're still kind of fun. I still listen to them occasionally. They're kind of warped. They're 30 to 40 years old. You'll enjoy looking at this one. This is Quiet Riot and Mental Health. An odd video when you were a little kid, slightly scary because it was a little bit about kind of the first look into mental health in the early to mid, I guess it would probably be mid to late 80s when we start looking at mental health in America. And this is a huge change. This song, Mental Health, really it's about a guy that's going completely crazy, just looking for a little bit of help in his community. And the music itself is pretty sweet. Moving along from the cassettes and the 8-tracks, once these get into cars, our music becomes completely mobile. Now it's odd. I have a 2007 Jeep Commander. I don't have an auxiliary cord. I have a CD player in there. I have a 6-disc right in the front there, which is another invention, is the multiple pieces there. But even these cassette decks and cassette tapes don't exist in brand new cars today. It's super interesting to watch the evolution of technology and music work its way through American society, because now when we get into a car, we don't even need to bring music. We have a phone and we can either stream it with Bluetooth or an auxiliary cord straight through our speaker systems in the car. It's really neat to look at. 1989, the boombox goes tiny, and this is called the Sony Walkman, and this is kind of a precursor to the iPod, but it was really only one cassette tape. I would pop this in when I'd be going to high school basketball games, and I'd sit up in the crowd thinking I was super cool, listening to the original LL Cool J and kind of the precursors to the gangster rap. But what I was most likely listening to was in 1989, Young MC came out with his big hit "Bust a Move." I can remember sitting on the varsity JV basketball bus talking to some cheerleaders, and they were mentioning that they liked this Young MC. So I, of course, went out and bought the CD, or I'm sorry, not even the CD, the cassette tape, thinking that by knowing that it would be super cool and they would like me and want to hang out with me and chat with me. The reality was much different. I was still kind of a dork, even though I had some cool music going. I learned very quickly it didn't matter what I listened to. I was just going to be me. People weren't going to care. So this was cool because it was super portable. You could take it with you. You could take it everywhere. This was the scourge of education in the 1980s and early 90s because, like teachers today are telling you to take your earbuds out, we were being told to take these off of our heads back in the day. Just not as much as things have changed, and not much has changed. Teenagers and education don't go hand in hand too well. Compact disc, the first CD player. Ironically, somebody bought me a CD for a gift, and the ironic part is I didn't even own a CD player, so I had to quickly go out and buy a boombox that had one. It had a double cassette and a single CD player in it. It was pretty cool. And a little into my guilty pleasures here, I have had a huge crush on Mariah Carey since the early 1990s, maybe even the late 1980s. This Mariah Carey Unplugged, it's a CD I still own today. I still listen to. My girls know it. Yeah, Mariah's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. I absolutely love her voice, but Mariah Carey Unplugged was the first CD I owned, and absolutely still love the song. It's a cover of Michael Jackson's, or the Jackson 5, I'll Be There. So enjoy that when you get a chance to look at that. Lastly, we get into something called the CD changer, and I can remember getting one of these when I was in college. I had a 5-disc changer stereo, and I could put 5 different CDs in it. You can just let it play, and it would play through the CD. When it finished it would flip onto the next CD and just continue going, or you could pre-program it saying, I want CD in slot 2 to play songs 5, 7, and 9, and then it's going to jump to CD 4 and play this song. The problem was it wasn't an instant changeover. It had to stop playing, pop the disc back in, spin the disc player, and go. It was about a 10 or 15-second delay, and it kind of killed the mood of the party. Not like I was ever at any of those. I didn't have a lot of friends. So CDs were my life, man. We moved to the iPod, where this is really, you just carry thousands of songs in your pocket. And this changes even more as we move into streaming music today. We carry millions of songs on our iPhones and our devices. I mean, it's the music you have streaming today is absolutely unbelievable. It's unlimited, and really the only thing that limits you is what you're willing to search for. It's a pretty interesting look at how music has changed. Now, if you look at music today, with the invention of the headphones, it's gone from the early music, which was very communal, very community oriented in orchestra halls and phonographs and these things, to very, very personal. My girls are constantly listening to music streaming through their iPads, and I never hear it. I don't even know what they're listening to. They've got their earbuds on. It's kind of fun, kind of neat. Just a lot of fun stuff to do. So hopefully you guys are enjoying what we've talked about here, and different streaming services that are out there. And I guess the real question we come to is, what's next? Where are we going to come up next? What's going to happen? Where are we going to be heading from here? So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to pop up those videos for you guys to take a look at tomorrow on Thursday, and I think you'll enjoy them. You'll have a little bit of a free response to some of those videos I pop up. Hope to see you guys soon. I miss you. Bye.